What's going on, guys? Welcome back to episode 90 of the Offshore Gamescast. Dave.
Dylan. No Lyle today.
No, unfortunately.
Everyone, send your thoughts to her for her dog, who seems to doing okay right now, but had a little medical emergency.
Cute little puppo.
Yeah, go to her Twitter. You can see a cute picture of the pup.
Yeah.
So we miss you, Lyle. Thinking of the pup. She'll be back soon. But today, Dave and I are talking about Scars Above. I think you look forward to next week. Dave, you're going to be talking all about Octopath Traveler 2, which
so good game.
I'd imagine that's going to be a bigger episode.
It'll be what it is.
That's accurate. And then April 11th is going to be Dredge. So keep your eyes open for those. If you're listening to us anywhere, on any platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, a bunch of others, Good Pods. There's Good Pods. Can't forget Good Pods. Please leave us a review, a rating. That stuff helps a lot. And if you want to see our faces and some gameplay of the game that we are talking about, go to our YouTube channel and subscribe there. We post daily highlights from the episodes. It's some good stuff there.
All systems nominal.
Fun.
Dave.
For our scan power
Dylan, who developed this game?
Mad Head Games.
Dylan, who published this game?
Prime Matter.
Dylan, who release date this game?
February 28th, 2023 release date of this game.
Dylan, how platforms?
PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and PC are how the platforms.
Thank you for showing up to this episode of the Offshore Gamescast.
That's it. That's all the info you need to know about Scars Above.
That's all you need to know.
All right. For those that don't know, because this is a very under the radar game, it had a few showings at like a couple of the, I don't know, maybe Summer Games Fest is when it was announced, like a couple years ago.
Probably.
But it mostly under the radar. This is a third-person Souls-like shooter in a sci-fi setting, but pushing more of a traditional narrative in the sense of, I mean, we all know Souls games cannot be the most straightforward with their narrative. This is going for much more of a straightforward story. So that's where we're going to start. Let's jump into this. There's a lot of sci-fi shit going on here. So the Metahedron appears in Earth's atmosphere, which is basically, it's like a giant pyramid thing that's clearly alien in nature.
It's upside down.
Is that what makes it a metahedron?
Yeah, it's just, it's just a hedron. It's a whole bunch. It's upside down. That's why it's crazy.
It's not if it was not upside down, it would have been like, there's that space pyramid again.
Oh, the clouds aren't blocking it today.
So that appears, and it's clearly high-tech, alien in nature. So the SCAR team is created, which is the Sentient Contact Assessment and Response Team. It's a group of scientists. You play as Kate Ward, who is a SCAR, which it's only mentioned like a couple of times at the beginning that you're a SCAR, and then it really drops off after that.
This whole group, this whole band of characters feel similar to like how you remember in the first episode of The Expanse where like they're all just kind of like, here's the medic, here's the leader, here's the tough guy, all like kind of brought together. Like none of these people feel like they're like elite military people, nor do they feel like they fit. Like you're just like a scientist. It makes me think of like Annihilation. Like you shouldn't be walking around with an M16. You should be taking notes. What are you doing?
Okay, you are a scientist, but they do explain it kind of that you're good with guns by just throwing in there very early on, like you came either first or second place in the rifle shooting competition at school, so you're good with a gun.
The only thing that'll make me believe that is by the way the character looks, textured. It's just that you're an android. That's the only thing I'll believe. You are a robot.
We're gonna get there, but yeah, it's visually, especially the characters. They struggle in that spot.
My face is tired.
Yeah, their faces are very tired. So you play as Kate. You're part of the SCAR team aboard your ship, the Hermes. As you're approaching the metahedron, you're trying to make contact with it, and immediately
Get it?
some sort of gravity device pulls you in.
Get it? You get why everything went bad? You're in the Hermes?
Is that a reference to something?
I don't know. He flew too close to the sun.
He
got burned.
That's not Hermes.
But he can fly, and if he were to fly too close to the sun, that'd be real bad.
Okay, sure. Well, Hermes flew too close to the metahedron.
Exactly.
And it went bad.
You got put on the naughty list.
So you get pulled in by some sort of gravity device. Ship crashes. You pass out or get knocked out somehow. Maybe I don't remember exactly what happens.
You take a nap.
You were like, it's not going as planned. I'm gonna take a nap and wait until it's all over. And you wake up just on this strange. You're like on a whole different planet, confused but totally fine. Like no scratches, no like you're not dead. You're just
no jacket.
No jacket. You get a jacket later, but no jacket.
No jacket.
You're just totally fine, which gets explained, and I'm glad that they did explain that because that was our first reaction when we saw it happen. Like, huh? So we just crashed, landed on the planet, we're just fine.
Yep.
But it is explained, and then you start seeing. This is where it starts to get kind of Mass Effect for me. The whole intro came off as very Mass Effect, but you start seeing this apparition of what's clearly an alien of some sort. Pretty much very humanoid, but not human. Giving you visions and kind of leading you down a path, and you're like, well, I gotta follow it because I don't know what the hell's going on here. Then it gives you touch the first pillar that you come across, and it's pure Mass Effect. When you come across the first beacon in Mass Effect, and you start getting like the crazy like the monsters vision. Yelling and shit like that.
You see everything. You know everything now.
It was just like that. Which, bringing it back, we are going to talk about like the music and stuff. The whole intro, whether the music, kind of like the look of the ship, which I guess sci-fi is sci-fi at some point, but the music and then like that whole intro just screamed Mass Effect. Like, it's all I was thinking about. It gets very far away from Mass Effect as the game goes on, but that whole intro gave me Mass Effect vibes. So not too long after, you come across your commander, who's Richard Robinson, and he ain't doing so hot. He's like mostly taken over by some sort of alien, and then he turns into a large monster that's kind of gross. And that's pretty much like it's not your first boss fight, but it feels like the real first major one. And that is kind of what sets off like, all right, I got to find the rest of my crew. The rest of the Hermes, there are two others, Tamara and Mike, I want to say was his name. You have to go find them, reunite, and like figure out how to get off this planet and what's even going on, like why you're here to begin with. And I don't want to go past that in terms of like the story, because these are kind of my thoughts on the story. At the end of the game, I really liked the lore that they built and kind of like the worlds and the explanations for why this thing was here and what was happening. That stuff was all cool to me. The actual characters and their story, I did not give a shit about. Like, if people died, I would not really be upset. I didn't have much reason to care about Kate at the end. Like, but the actual like lore and the reasoning behind things, what was actually happening, that stuff was cool to me. Like, as the reveals were happening, I was like, that's cool. Yeah, I like that.
There's some high moments.
Yeah, but it's not really it's not in Kate's story. It's really in like the alien shit where it's cool. The human shit is not that cool.
Not at all.
And it doesn't do a great job building any sort of like emotional impact to anything.
No, it's Anthem.
How are we doing with that?
I didn't play Anthem. You played Anthem.
Yeah, you don't give a shit.
Did it at least have a cool world in Anthem though?
Yeah, maybe when you could fly for more than 30 seconds and then like not get like burnt out and have to fly through a waterfall to cool you down.
All right. Would you say Is Scars Above better than Anthem? Because we
They're both-
disagree on Scars Above mostly.
They're both not great games.
I'd agree with that.
I don't fully like either of them, and I think they were both. I think they both fell into a genre that they shouldn't have been.
As in, like, Scars Above shouldn't have been a Souls-like,
Not at all.
and Anthem shouldn't have been a Destiny-like.
Not at all.
Okay, got it. All right, let's talk about combat, because this is really where we disagree on things.
It's where it's where it actually feels that I don't like.
I disagree. I like the way it feels.
Mhm.
So it's a third person shooter, and it plays mostly with elemental shit. So your different guns, you have the Vera, which is like electricity. Then you have the thermic charger, which is fire. The cryo launcher is ice, and the chemical atomizer is acid. And you can upgrade the Vera upgrades to the Volta, and the thermic charger upgrades to the fire ray kind of later in the game. And those are just straight up like one continuous stream you're shooting for both of them. And I actually liked those upgrades a lot. I pretty much just stuck with those once I got them. But you can change between them real quick on the D-pad, so it's all on the fly. So if you want to, that's really where the gameplay is you're messing with those elements to really mess up the enemies. That's like, they do a lot of, oh, this enemy's in the water, shoot it with electricity, and that will do way more damage. Or, oh, this giant creature is on this big, like, frozen over pond. Use the fire thing to make a hole right under them, and they'll just fall in and freeze and die immediately. You don't have to actually fight it. Which I enjoyed that stuff.
Yes, Commander.
I don't know if you were into that.
That's everything about that's fine. It's when it comes into like the dodging and just the running and like that sort of way is where it feels janky. It feels so stiff. It feels bad in that regard.
I mean, I guess I will say I didn't do, obviously, like, you're sprinting everywhere, but I feel like for what is supposed to be a Souls game, I did very little dodging. Like, usually just one quick dodge, which, it worked fine.
Well, I'll take like that first boss for example, like where he's like bringing his fist down in a succession, sending out these rocks and stuff, wanting you to dodge over and over and over again.
Yeah,
but it's figuring out what to do for each boss and then just running far away and then shooting them in the one special spot.
I mean, yeah, that's a fair thing to say. Is yeah, each enemy and the bosses too have a weak spot on them, which is typically color coded. So like if it's red, you're gonna want to use your fire weapon. If it's blue, typically electricity. There are very few things that were weak to the ice or acid elements.
Yeah, those are more like tools in a way.
Pretty much, yeah. Like you do go through.
The ice was a tool. The acid did more damage over time.
Yeah, and acid was good for like a very specific portion of the game where you're going against more mechanical things.
But then it was like there.
After that, other than environmental stuff, so like, oh, you need the acid gun to get past this specific blockage. I don't think I
like
ever
pipes.
use. Yeah, I don't think I ever use it again.
Yeah.
You could like shoot down stalactites, but even so, it was a lot of like, all right, they're gonna set up the stalactites, they're gonna set up the ice melting, they're gonna set up the creatures in water. Those are all very like specific portions of the game. So like in the beginning, that's when like enemies are in the water a lot. You're kind of going through this like swampy area, and then it's like the snowy area specifically where you're melting the ice, and it's in the more mechanical kind of like very sci-fi spaceship like shit where you're using the chemical atomizer.
It's linear as linear can be.
It's very linear. There's not much there are like side paths which usually have knowledge, which
Mhm.
knowledge is pretty much how you level up in this game.
Which is where my biggest issue comes in with this game, is the fact that you do not level up based off experience game from fighting enemies. You get nothing from enemies besides a few resources sometimes.
Sometimes,
But the only way you're leveling up is by knowledge, as you're just exploring and learning, which just takes away all incentive that feels good with the fighting. If you're already not having a good time, it makes it feel so much more like a chore because you're not getting anything from it. And if every other thing that this game is showing, if it wasn't a Souls-like and it was just like a third-person shooter just running around, I feel like it would be so much better.
So I didn't get that feeling, but also I guess the difference is I enjoyed combat and you didn't love it. So like
you like Remnant, I don't like Remnant.
That is true.
It's still it took me a while to even get into Souls-likes in general, but just the way the shooting ones feel, I thought I'd like them more. I really don't. I really don't at all.
So are you excited for Remnant 2?
No, I learned my lesson with the first one.
So I like the way they handled the like tools and gadget stuff, which
Those I like.
it was. So you have different tools, which are ammo caches, battery recharge, healing injection, resistance booster, and you make those through fibers. So like an ammo cache will give you basically one clip size in each of your guns, and to make that and to use it, it's not like you find them everywhere. You can find occasional items, but really you're picking up fibers for those, which is just like dead plants or off like a corpse or something, and you are crafting that pretty much on the fly. So I through upgrades and stuff, ends up where it's like, oh, I can have 120 fibers at all time, and then each thing costs me 15 fibers to make, and that's how you're always making those. Then there are gadgets, which is where like that battery recharge comes in, because these use batteries, which is a protective barrier, which is like pretty much just a force field all around your body that will absorb some damage until once it takes too much,
you
it
could
breaks.
take 5 hits.
5 hits, okay. There's flammable liquid, which it's like something you throw onto enemies and it splashes everywhere, and then if you shoot them with a fire gun, it lights them all on fire. So it's like you're throwing like gasoline on enemies, basically.
Big gimmick during a boss fight.
Yeah, there's a hollow lure, which you throw it out. It's just a lure. It's a distraction for enemies. That's pretty standard. And then there's gravity trap and spatial shift, which work very similarly. Just one was better. So basically, a gravity trap, you throw it down, and in this like circular force field, everything in it moves slower. But then there's spatial shift, which you just activate and everything but you move slower. So that is just it's the better version. It's not just like one circular spot, it's just everything.
Until you get that though, you're like the best thing you can do is use gravity trap every 5 seconds. Because
I barely use
nothing. It makes it so much better, because especially with the big guys with the spots on their chest, you just throw it down and then they're just stopped. They're waiting.
Oh yeah, I guess that would have been a lot easier.
Challenge.
I just like tried to use like real quick reflexes. All right, so let's talk about what makes it a Souls-like, because it does kind of have a difficulty that I honestly did not struggle with all that much. It was the first boss, not even talking about like the commander, the captain, whoever he was, even before that. And first off, the checkpoint for that boss is awful.
Also, the entire game's checkpoint is awful.
I was fine the rest of the game with checkpoints.
I think they're way too far. Like, if you were to go fuck something up, to which I just, like I said, I don't like these games or like bullet hell shit and whatnot. If you are traveling, you are running, there is a distance.
So it definitely does a thing where it's like, all right, you got this pillar, that's what they call it in this game instead of bonfires.
Yeah.
And you go through a thing and you'll basically loop back around in a way and unlock a door or break something down, and then you can like use that as a shortcut. I didn't, but what I was going to say is, other than the first boss, and then there was one other segment I struggled with a bit, I didn't really die much at all. The whole second half of the game, I don't think I died a single time.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I didn't have that. Maybe I could see if you're dying a lot, like having to constantly go back there and then go through the same segments. I could see that being annoying, but I didn't have that issue really.
I think it's one of those things where it's like it's up until the point where I'm at now, which I'm probably a little bit more than halfway. It's one of those things where it's like I'm still learning how the game works. Like, oh, I didn't realize for these bosses we're waiting for a certain moment to like pretty much just like break them down and then shoot them. Like I'm anticipating a normal Souls like
it's
like just trying to whittle. I'm not like trying to find the moment to like do damage. To which I feel like in that way it is just like a regular third person just like action shooter, but just way too hard to try to be like a Souls. Like it shouldn't be one. And also in the fact where it's like it's Souls light, in the fact that like those pillars, your bonfires, are just replenishing health and being like a respawn point. You can upgrade yourself on the fly as long as you have the skill points. I feel like they just it felt like at the last second they were like, we should make this Souls like. Souls like those are popular. Those are good. You like those? I go home and I play those. I play those at home. You play those at home?
Hey, Elden Ring was big.
Elden Ring. We could be Elden Ring. We could be Elden Big. I was like,
I definitely agree that in terms of being a Souls-like, I mean, obviously we're having different experiences here. I didn't find the game nearly difficult enough to and I was playing normal, not like hard, so I could have raised the difficulty if I really wanted that. But I typically will do games on normal unless I'm really struggling, then I bump it down.
I threw it on easy after like struggling with the first boss because I was just like not having fun with it. And then throughout the game, I was playing on easy, and then something happened where I got brought back to normal without even realizing. And I did
weird.
I did that whole like Ice Lake one boss, apparently completely on normal. And I was like, yeah, this is whatever. And then afterwards, I switched it back down to easy. I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? What's happening?
Wow. So I definitely think it like takes elements from the Souls games, which is like, yeah, the pillars on the bonfires in the sense that you rest there, enemies respawn, it replenishes your health things, which it took me almost the entire game. I was just using the healing injections, so you use fibers to make those and like slowly regenerate your health over time.
Yeah.
I just thought that was the healing item for the majority of the game, so that's what I was using. And then eventually I was like, oh, I have 4 charges of just like your Estus flask, if you will, from Dark Souls that recharges at every spawn point.
Dylan's
or every pillar.
Super humble bragging the entire time of Scars Above.
No, if anything, it made it like I would do that to be like, all right, well, I guess I'm gonna have to put in my protective barrier while I'm waiting for my health to recharge in case I get hit.
And I'm over here legit like 1 hit away from actual death, no healing items, and I'm running around panicked.
I didn't really have, I didn't have many panic moments. I think the enemies definitely get repetitive because they do start to really like, they'll either throw a lot of the same enemies at you or like a different elemental version.
Yeah, ice big guy, rock big guy, naked big guy. I was really thrown off when we saw naked big guys the first time as like an enemy type because I was like, wait a minute, what? We're going backwards now? Okay.
Yeah. No, they reuse a lot of the same enemies, and I think that bosses, I think that they do a good job of the bosses all looking pretty different.
Yeah.
Like
that's
visually and like gameplay. Yeah, but they never felt nearly like, other than the first boss, which is still kind of like I'm learning the game, and then once I got it, and that really bad checkpoint from all the other checkpoints of the game are like, here's your checkpoint, here's your pillar, the boss fight is like right up ahead. For whatever reason, that one was like, oh, you died, and you have to go make this stupid ice path across the lake again.
Fuck that shit. I hated
that was so stupid.
Hated it.
The rest of the checkpoints with bosses were fine. But like none of them felt challenging enough. I was never like like dying a bunch to a boss, and then you get that feeling, like, you know, that feeling when you finally beat that boss of just straight up
Yeah.
like fist pumping, like actually like exclaiming something. I didn't get that at all in this game.
I feel like it's hard for me just because I'm not having the most fun anyway. So it's like I don't really care. Like I'm more so just getting angry at it. Like when I'm not doing good. Whereas nowadays when I'm playing something like Long or Elden Ring, I'll get mad when like something real dumb happens, but as I'm playing, I'm just like I'm steaming. I'm not getting mad, I'm steaming, but it's like I'm not
that's
mad. I'm not
that's
mad
a
at
good
it.
way to describe that. I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I like that.
Hmm.
So we touched on it. Finding knowledge is how you unlock skill points, which are just these like little purple pyramid things that you find. They're just a collectible. That's where like exploring comes in. So there are like little paths that branch off and usually lead to a dead end or kind of like loop back around. That's
Yeah.
usually what you're finding there. I got, by the end of the game, I had all the abilities unlocked from just like basic exploring, and then was still getting plenty of knowledge left over, which there's nothing to do with once you have all the abilities.
This game is like I said, it was linear. This game, if you do explore, it gives you everything.
Yeah.
Like before I even started playing, I noticed how many achievements or trophies Dylan got with the game. He's like, "Yeah, I got a few." I'm like, "This motherfucker, shut up." 43 out of 46. Yeah, I got a few,
Yeah,
but
I didn't realize because I literally never look at that because like
yeah,
I just don't typically care. There's very few games. Like the only game I can remember in recent history that was like, oh, I might as well get the platinum was Spider-Man.
Ghost.
You're right. You're right. Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah,
Those
it's a
two.
good game. Because
That is a good game.
I'm the same person. I did Spider-Man and then Ghost.
Yeah. But I usually like don't so I had no idea I was that close.
But fucking Scars Above is like Matt Hazard. It gives like you get an achievement or a trophy from sneezing, and it'll say like bless
Yes.
you. Like they
Yeah,
just hand them out like candy.
you get it a lot. So the way the skill tree works, which I kind of liked this, even though it's
Yeah.
like it's nothing special. Games have definitely done this, but you get 4 tiers, and you start at the bottom. That's like level 1, and
Mm.
then it's once you unlock like 3 skills in level 1, then you can start getting the level 2 abilities, which now cost like 2 knowledge points, skill point, whatever they called it.
Yeah.
You need to fill that meter twice because every time you find knowledge, it's like, oh, this meter filled by 16%, 7%. Then you get a good one, it's like 50%. So it was basically filling up that meter, and every time you did, you got a point. So there's 4 tiers that work like that, and like I said, I filled it out. There were definitely plenty that I just were for shit I didn't use whatsoever. But I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I have the points, I might as well.
Exactly. Like I'm at the point that I'm at now in the game, like roughly halfway through. I probably couldn't use another skill point and still be fine. Like I got the one level 4 one where it's like all your weapons do 15% more damage. I'm like I'm probably fine now. You know?
So yeah, there are a lot of, to be fair, a lot of generic abilities which are that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this gets increased by a certain percentage, or like it is kind of cool where it's like, oh, a gadget has a 15% chance of not using any of your battery, and the same with the fiber things. I think the most useful is the active reload.
That's one I don't have, and
so it does the Gears of War thing where when you're reloading, gives you like a circle meter and you have to hit it halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's cool about it is that you get one weapon, you're firing with it, active reload. If you hit it, it will reload every single one of your weapons, which when you're kind of switching back and forth between them to do different things, that was by far for me the most useful ability.
Mm.
But yeah, there's like it's nothing groundbreaking. I thought it was an interesting skill tree.
It tries to make you feel like when you're starting off, like it gives you choice to like what I should put points to, because it's like I need to put a point here to get to the next level.
Right.
So it's like, what am I gonna choose to like put me there? But if you're just getting them all by the end, it's like this shouldn't be a fucking Souls-like.
Yeah, and like I said, I had no issue at all. Like I was finding so much extra knowledge by the end of the game, and
Knowledge is
you
power.
do get a decent amount of upgrades. You get by like exploring those paths. So I do think they're worth exploring because you could just totally miss them and you won't get them.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to point out, which I thought was interesting, was okay. So the first time you upgrade a weapon, you come across like the table that was on the ship, where it's like the arm that like modifies it. And then after, so I was thinking, oh, okay, we're gonna come across these tables at different points to upgrade our guns.
Yep.
No, after that, you find an upgrade, and the table is just like, all right, I got it.
This
like
shouldn't be a Souls-like. It just
shows a screen and does it.
You.
Yeah,
you get it, and it's like attached. Yes, all right, cool. You have more ammo now. You do.
Yeah, pretty much. Like that is what a lot of the weapon upgrades are too. It's like increasing clip size, like stuff like that. But that was a weird detail. I kind of created the headcanon of, okay, we got like crazy sci-fi shit. Maybe it like folds up into a really small thing you put in your pocket. Then you just kind of toss it out and it makes the table. But that is definitely headcanon because they never showed any of that for a game that was actually pretty decent at like, hey, yeah, you woke up and you're totally fine. That gets completely explained. Like a lot of those things get explained pretty well.
For this, my headcanon is still she's an android. She's creating this inside of her. She is the 3D printer. So on top of that, to me, what felt really jarring is like when you go and you fight the bosses, like the second you enter the arena, you have already teleported 20 feet and it's like, snap, you're in a cutscene and things are just happening.
Yeah, that too, which is kind of why I say like I didn't give a shit about the characters because the cutscenes like basically were that. It's like thing happens, fight, but there was no like.
Yeah.
There never really felt there was ever any urgency to anything or any real narrative outside of the other alien shit going on. Like I cared way more about, again, without going into spoilers, like that apparition you have that kind of follows you throughout the whole game. I cared way more about what happened there than I did anything with Kate or her team or anything with the humans.
Yeah, no, that's those were the moments where I start picking up my phone during the cutscene. Like,
I mean, the cutscenes were like nothing, and that's also when it looked the worst.
Yeah, the game does not look good. It their faces are so tired, and it just looks like shit. It's bad. It's bad.
So while we're here, let's talk about the visuals and the music then. So I found that like the environments and most of the enemies, because they are aliens, like they don't. It's not a crazy good looking game by any means, but it was fine. All that stuff. And then, yeah, once you get to the faces and anyone's talking, it's really bad. Like, straight up reminded me of, like, Half-Life. It's bad.
The textures are so bad. They look like clay. They're so smooth.
Yeah.
And, like, the physics are good, but it messes with the bad animations and everything and just the textures, and it looks bad. Like, she's going up and down the elevator, and her ponytail's, like, perfectly going with the physics of gravity, and, like, you're going down the elevator. Her thing is, like, her ponytail's straight up, and then her face is just, like, mud. And it's bad. It's all bad.
And when they talk, like, their mouths don't actually animate words.
No, they don't line up. They don't do nothing.
It is extreme to say that they just open and close with no moving, but it kind of is like that. That's bad.
It's, yeah.
And I will say that the music, especially early on, it really leans into Mass Effect, and then everything past that intro where it sounded very Mass Effect was completely forgettable. I could not recall a single tune from this game. All I can remember is that it sounded like Mass Effect at the beginning.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, it does things that I really like that it doesn't do too much of later in the game, where like, oh, you're opening this crate, so you have to like individually select the little latches, and then it opens up. Like it's such a tiny detail, but I like that stuff in games.
That's fine, but then later when you're actually getting to like scan things, it gives you zero direction to what you should be scanning.
Yeah, so the scanning gets annoying, and and they completely like the whole like opening crate shit that just ended after the intro. And one thing I do enjoy, I always enjoy controller noises. So like when you're scanning stuff and like your controller's all like making little beepy noises like that. I don't know why. I like that shit.
For this game specifically, it pissed me off. I hated it every time I heard it.
It wasn't just because of the game, though.
I just didn't like it. Some games I remember the first time I experienced it with Killzone Shadowfall, with like just hearing button noises and like audio logs and stuff, and thinking it was cool, and then I never ever thought it was cool again. Like
Yeah, I
Horizon
kind
did
of got
it.
stuck in that era, and I just always like it.
Yeah, I don't, and like it sounds. The speaker's not the best either, so it sounds like kind of grainy at the same time as it's coming out, and it's
It's
not.
better than the Wii.
It's better than the Wii, but it's not. I'm not having it. I'm like holding my thumb over the speaker because I'm trying to hide it.
Okay,
Because some of these fucking games, there's probably a setting on the PS5 at somewhere, but
probably.
in the games themselves, there's no setting to turn that shit off, and I'm like, what are you doing?
You would think that You would think there'd be a setting, because I'm sure they could just play that out the TV if the people. Listen. I like the controlling devices. I'm
the
fine
people.
with them, but you're the people.
I am the people.
Anything else you want to add before we go into the final score here?
I feel like this game gave me really, like, you know how it was like we were doing our orgy thing the last episode.
If no one listens to the episode, they're just gonna listen to this like, whoa, what happened?
What did we miss?
Go back to our review of the Pale Beyond and also Atomic Heart. This is this is the trilogy.
I kept feeling chorus vibes. I don't know exactly. Maybe it was like the environments in the areas, and like maybe because you're just walking around with like an AI sort of thing. I got very chorusy vibes.
Sure. I can see it in the sense that just like in Chorus, I will say I think I enjoyed Chorus more.
Absolutely.
But I did kind of get the same type of thing where I ended up not really caring about the characters or their stories all that much as I did just playing it and just kind of being in that world.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I can see that. I landed my final score, which I know is going to be higher than you, but I'm giving this game a solid 7.
I'm more than halfway done. I'll probably still end up finishing it because of how far I've. It's a short ass game anyway.
It's not that long, yeah.
Yeah, I probably will solidly give it a 5.
Well, it's getting a 7 because it's my review, bitch.
This is your review, yeah. But like the Dave, the one Dave fan will know that it's a 5.
No, that is a good way to look. Because like, listen, I do believe that you are better following specific people and their game taste when it comes to reviews than just like if you go to IGN and look at their reviews, there's a lot of people that do reviews on that website.
Yeah, that's you gotta look at who wrote the article to be like, all right, that's this person's opinion. I like this person. This is not the entity's opinion.
So I think that if you typically align yourself with my opinions, you'll enjoy this game. If you typically align yourself with Dave's opinions, maybe don't play this game.
It's just not polished. It wasn't ready.
No, I would agree.
Yeah,
with.
Not ready, not polished, and it should not have been a Souls-like, or even a Souls-light. It's just
that stuff kind of did feel slapped on, and it didn't provide the difficulty or the same feeling that a good Souls-like gives me.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
I think regardless whether it is a Souls-light or if it wasn't, it would have been completely forgettable like 2 months down the line. But I think it would have been better off.
Yeah, I will say when they first showed this game out, I was definitely expecting a much more narrative game than what we ended up getting. I thought it was going to be way more story-driven than it being just like straight up a Souls-like.
Yeah.
All right, we got some write-ins.
We did.
Yeah, we got Liv from Between Two Gamers, which is at Between Two Gamers on Twitter. Go check out their show. She asks, I played part of the demo and the story seemed quite bleak. Did you feel that way too, or does it get better?
No.
So, like I said, I found that I didn't care too much about the characters in the end, and I cared more about the lore, which I enjoyed. Without going into spoilers, like it does start with like, oh yeah, here's your captain who's all like a crazy fucked up alien. That is kind of it doesn't get much worse than that, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. But it ends on a happier, hopeful note than it begins. That's for sure. So yes, it gets better.
Good.
And then the Online Warriors podcast at Online Warriors 1 on Twitter. Also, go check out their show. They ask, can't wait to hear your thoughts on this one. It's been on my radar, but the backlog is so big. Main question, buy, pass, or wait for sale? I would say wait for sale, but even then, like I gave it a solid 7. This game, I can already tell you, just based on the games I've played this year and what we already know is coming, it's not going to touch any Game of the Year categories for me. It's not going to be in my top 10 by the end of the year. It probably won't even make my top 15 or 20 by the end of the year. It's fine. 7 I enjoyed my experience. I don't regret playing it, but I think you are totally fine skipping this one.
Dave says pass. Pass.
Dave says pass. I think if you really are into third-person sci-fi shit, wait for sale. All right, let's move on to some news and fun facts, which is we put out a poll question. What was your favorite weapon to use? And the Vera/Volta, which is the electric weapon, got a clean sweep of 100%. To be clear, this was by far our least... Almost no one voted. There were 2 votes, and Dave was one of them. I don't know who the other person was. Thank you for your vote, other person. Most of our polls do pretty good with engagement, and I'm actually very happy about that. Yeah. This one, no one's really playing Scars Above, so...
No. Hey, it got my attention.
But would you have played it if I wasn't doing the review? So did it not really
moving
keep
on.
Attention? Mad Head Games, the game director, Ivan Zorkic, did an interview with Elizabeth Howell on space.com, which I guess just covers anything space.
All right.
And this is space.
Okay.
But I thought this was an interesting mishmash. Let's talk about like the inspirations for Scars Above. In terms of movies, it was stuff like Star Trek and Star Wars, which you get for pretty much anything sci-fi. Alien was listed on there. But also Forbidden Planet and Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which is interesting. And then video games that inspired it were, not surprisingly, Mass Effect. Like I said, that was, especially early on, very Mass Effect vibes. But they also listed Dead Space, Resident Evil, Death Stranding, and Horizon Zero Dawn.
I also want to say, besides Chorus, there was one point I was playing, and I was thinking about Death Stranding. For some reason, I got Death Stranding vibes. Which might also... Maybe it's just, like, the amount of walking. Like, you're just super linearly walking just through these areas for, like, a good amount of parts of the game. And I just... Maybe it's because I also still don't like Death Stranding, but want to finish it. It's just... I got it. I felt it.
I mean, they must have done something to be inspired by Death Stranding then, as like one of the games I said, if it gave you that feeling. I was gonna say I got almost none of those games except Mass Effect early on with kind of the vibe. But
I can see Dead Space. I can see Resident Evil. Like, it's a much slower style game, very resource heavy.
Yeah. It's just they didn't list the single Souls game.
Well,
it's interesting.
Because it shouldn't be a fucking Souls game. But it is.
That's it. That's what we got. Let's do some notable game releases here.
Notable games.
Starting off, we got Crime Boss Rockay City. Spoiler alert, we're going to have an episode on that.
Spoiler.
That's coming March 28th to PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC.
And coming March 30th, 2023 is Dredge. Spoiler alert, fuck you. We'll also be doing an episode on that. That'll be coming...
Whoa, why are we so aggressive?
That'll be coming up PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X and S.
Robinson's boot. Apparently he was heading towards the water.
Nintendo Switch and PC.
Wow. For a second, I did feel like we were having internet problems again, but I saw you slightly moving. So I was like, what? I don't know what... That works for video, not for audio. I'll have to trim that down.
Just pause.
All right, that does it. That's that. Scars Above.
Tune in next week.
Yeah,
You
Octopath.
no, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I want you. Do you want to?
No, that's. I mean, it's.
I mean, it's your game.
I know, but your episode, but
Well, yeah,
I.
but
It's a good game.
uh,
If I